All right, we're gonna make an average calculator. So we're gonna have to take three inputs. So like 1, 2, 3, hit calculate average, and it's gonna output what we want that to be. So you can try doing that on your own, or you can follow along. So we're gonna start off just with some simple little HTML things. We're not gonna go too far to start. Just gonna say, put the title is average calculator. And maybe we'll just give it some type of heading. So H1 average calculator. And close that tag. And maybe put like the little horizontal rule that was underneath of it. And that's kind of all we're going to do for that so far. So there we go. At least we know it's working now. Okay, let's look at the JavaScript and what has to happen. So the first thing, we have to take some inputs and then actually find out the average and then output them. So we're going to start off by doing it with prompts. So we'll do input and we'll just do prompt number 1. And that definitely has to be in quotations. Oops. Okay, prompt number 1. I'm just going to copy and paste this. Okay, so number 1, 2, and 3. And we need to store those somewhere. So let's just do, now these aren't very good. This isn't great naming, but we're just doing this quickly. If this was a bigger project, you definitely want to make sure that these were more clear about what you're actually doing. Like, select number num3. There we go. And now let's just make sure that's working. So it's prompting number 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to want to do some type of process to it. And in our case, it's going to be averaging it. So we're going to let the average equal. So we're going to add num1 plus num2 plus num3. And we're going to divide that by 3. Okay, now it would be nice to be able to see what that is. So let's do an output this time. And I'm just going to do it as an alert. And average. Okay, let's see how that works. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and whoa, we get 41. Let's try that again. Let's do some bigger numbers. So 10, 20, 30. So I should average 20, and I get 34,000. So it might be more clear what the problem is if I get rid of this divide by 3 for a second. So let's just do that again. 10, 20, 30. It's actually just concatenating them and putting those strings together. Because right now, it's treating whatever we enter there as a string. This prompt actually comes out as a string, not as a number. Even though we're entering a number, it stores it as a string. So to fix that, we need to turn this into a number. Oops. So now all of these, when they come out, will be stored as numbers. So just bring that plus sign there. So now if I go hit run and I go like 10, now we're not averaging right now, we're just adding 10, 20, 10, we should get 40. Perfect. So now if I go and divide this by 3, so let's just say 10, 20, 30, I should get 20. Perfect. Okay, so now we have a calculator that's working, at least giving us the average when we put out some numbers. Let's go and make some HTML then. And then we'll kind of have to change. We don't want a prompt. We want to have some kind of input boxes. So let's go back and let's look what this looked like. So we had, that looks like a header 2. Please enter 3 numbers and then a list. Okay. So it's H2. And just gonna go back and look what that looked like. Inputs, please enter these numbers. Okay, so inputs. And then we're going to want a paragraph that says, please enter 3 numbers. Okay, now we're going to do a list with no numbers. So UL, and we can start listing our list items. So we'll say, hey, what is number 1? And then we're going to want that person to put their information in an input box. We'll give it an ID, and we'll just say this is num1. We're using it as a variable in JavaScript, but not as an ID yet, an index, so that's okay. We want a number, so we're going to do type equals number. There we go. Now, just to save some time, I should be able to copy and paste these. Hopefully auto format's going to fix that. It did not completely fix it. Seems different browsers fix it better. Okay, so we want number 1, 2, and 3. And we have to make sure we change these IDs to 2 and 3. Okay, so that should work now. Okay, I don't need it to do that every time anymore. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty close. Okay, so now we just need a button. I need to end this list. So our ending tag, give myself some space. And then we're going to make a button in a new paragraph. And we'll give it an ID. Let's say it's calc button. And I think I wrote calc av in there. So calc average. And close that button off. And close that paragraph off. All right. I'm going to get rid of it. I don't want this to keep on happening. So if I hit control, there we go. / it's going to comment all this out. So now when I go back here, I hit run. Okay, so NaN, it's kind of a neat teaching moment here. It just means not a number. So whatever it's trying to output right now, it's outputting nothing because these are null, they're empty. And so this isn't a number that it's trying to tell us. Anyway, okay, so we got calc average output. That's another header on there. So it's header 2, output h2. Okay, and I believe there was a paragraph under that that said the average of the 3 numbers is. Now, we want some kind of placeholder here, so something like that is what I used. And I want just that placeholder part to change. So for that reason, I'm going to use a span tag. I do need to give it an ID, and I'm just going to call it average out. And where the tag ends, so end the span tag. And we should also end our paragraph. Probably look better if I made this bigger for you. There you go. Okay, so what else is this? That's it. We're good. So if I hit run, yes, we know that's still happening. The average of the 3 numbers is. Perfect. So now all we have to do is kind of connect this HTML that we've written and with this process we already have. So now I can uncomment this. So chord control /, and let's start looking at what we need to do here. So this button is kind of the key to this. So we're going to have to make an event listener because nothing happens until that button is clicked. Listener. So to do that, we're going to have to find the button. So document.get element by ID. Document, and I don't know what I called that one. Let's go back and look. Calc button. Okay, calc button. And we're going to want to add an event listener. And for this one, I want it to be a click. And I have to decide a function I want to run. So I need to turn all of this ending stuff into a function so it only runs when that button is clicked. So I'm going to call the function average, calc average, which means, again, when we click on it, it's going to run that function. So I'm going to make an event function. And I'm going to call it calc average. I already said that before. Up here it has to match if I want to call it. So we have no parameters right now. And now we can start just copy and paste all those things we want to happen. Okay. So if I hit run now, nothing should happen because we haven't got the event listener activated yet, meaning we haven't got this function called yet. So if I go and click on this button though, it should start asking for what the average is. So 1, 2, 3, or sorry, the numbers, and it should average them still. Perfect. But we don't want to have to keep on doing these prompts, so we're going to change this. So we want to find it from this input. And what did I call them? Oh, just num1, 2, num2, num3. Okay, so we're going to do the document dot get element by ID. I'm looking for num1. And I want the value from that input. And I can kind of speed this up a little bit by just doing some copying and pasting. All right, I'm just going to make sure we change it to num1, num2, num3. Now if I hit run, nothing should happen still. Let's see if I go 1, 2, 3. Calc output. Ooh, back to 41. Let's just see that one more time. So 10, 20, 30. Oh, okay, so again, it is actually treating this as if it is a string. That's why we're kind of getting this weird numbers. So if we just put a plus in front of this, it will turn them all into numbers so we can do operations on them. So now if I hit run and I go 10, 20, and 30, hit calculate, perfect. The average of that is 20. Okay, so our input is good. Our process must still be good then. So it's just this output. I want it to output right here. So let's see what we put for our span tag ab out. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. We'll do document get element by ID, and I said it was ab out. And what we want to change in there is the inner HTML to be whatever our average comes out to be. So that's going to take this variable that already has the average in it, and it's going to replace these dotted lines. So let's just watch that work. So let's see, 10. Oops, well, you can use the arrows as well. 30. Calculate. Okay, yeah, so rounding isn't so good right here, but you got 20, and you can just see it keeps on going for rounding. We can control that. We're not too worried about here, though. So now we have created an average calculator for 3 numbers.